are there's lots of us here today, which is fantastic. So we're just letting everyone in now. And I see lots of folks that we know. Yay, lots of familiar faces. This is great. Welcome, everyone. Let's have all your faces on gallery view. Oh, there we go. Hello, everyone. I'm going to keep letting folks in just for one more minute, and then introduce ourselves, and then we'll get going. But welcome. Hello, Brady, John, Zach, Mandy. Oh my goodness, look at all these wonderful faces. Welcome, everyone. I'm Helen Appleby, and we are here today to launch and celebrate Mark Silverman and his 5th book or contribution to a book, and this is his latest Rising Leader Handbook. And we're going to be hearing from a few folks and asking him questions. So he and I are going to be co-leading, and I'm going to be interviewing him, and love to hear from you guys as well if you have questions, or if anybody wants to jump in and share something that they've got from the book, if you had an advanced reader copy, or if you've I spy a bunch of Mark's clients on here too. So love to hear from folks on the journey. But Mark, say a few words for us. Say hello. You know so many of these smiling faces, don't you? This is great.
So I was told that if 20 people showed up, this is a success. So this looks like a rousing success. Thank you so much for showing up. This was a big deal for me. I put a lot of work into this, and I called in a lot of favors and called in a lot of asks, and people stepped up, and I'm so appreciative. The book started selling before it was even announced. So I'm excited, and I wish I could say hello to each and every one of you, but I don't have my reading glasses on, so I can barely see who's here. Helen, thank you for doing this.
You're really welcome, Mark. And they're still arriving. Folks are still arriving. So as we kick off and as we get going, as we dive into this, I will just do a little commercial that I've been reminded to do. And that is, this is the launch day. And, we're authors and algorithms and all the things. And so it would mean the world to Mark and to the algorithm if if you could today purchase on Kindle. It's available now as of today for 99 cents, or I guess 99p. Mandy, let us know. And that makes you then a verified purchaser, which then means when you write a 5-star review and say something nice, that Amazon will accept it and publish it quickly, and that all feeds the monster, feeds the Jeff's machine, to help Mark continue to make an impact and get the word out in the world. So please, Kindle and then review. And thank you very much. Wonderful. Good. So lots and lots of folks here. Is Steve with us? Is Steve Chandler here?
Yes.
Jet. Was that a yes?
He is there.
He is there. Amazing. My goodness. Okay. I will be introducing you. There he is. Hello, Steve.
Hi, Helen.
So there's lots of us to hear today, and we're going to hear from a few of us, but I'm really honored to be able to introduce our guest speaker, Steve Chandler. What do you say about Steve? Many of us, I'm sure, know Steve, and many of us have had our lives impacted by Steve. And I certainly have. And if it wasn't for, there we go, yes. If it wasn't for one of Steve's many books, I would not even know Mark. So Steve is a prolific author and incredible, leader in the coaching industry, a leading light in the coach industry, and wrote a book, has written many books, but wrote the Prosperous Coach book. And it was through that work that I met Mark. And then Steve, I was also a student of yours, and yes, that book and your many others I recommend to clients. I have used to build my practice, and I know you and Mark go back a long way, and so And I know you have many things to do and you've written many books and you know how this goes. So just really thrilled that you could be here today I know you don't do this a lot, but really thrilled you could be here today. So tell us, Steve, tell us why this book and what you've taken from this book and yeah, talk to us and welcome.
Thank you, Helen. Yeah, I'm a guest speaker without a speak. I've got rave reviews running through my head. I love this book. I'm going to be sending this book to the leaders I work with now and I have worked with, and also the coaches I work with now and have worked with who coach leaders. Because more than any other book, and there are a lot of really good leadership books out there, but none like this, none as thorough, none as complete, none that really capture the heart of what's missing in the world of leadership, in my opinion, why I thrilled to this book. And I'll tell you why it was so thrilling. All of it was. But the key thing to me, it really hit me like a ton of bricks when I got to page 156. Ego is the cause of all your problems. That's a pretty bold statement. And what I love about this book, not only does that statement match up with my whole history, 25 years of, I used to do nothing but corporate training and coaching, nothing but leaders. And this statement is what's behind all the missed potential, all the dysfunction in leadership, not only in corporations, but in politics, especially in politics. Ego is the cause of all your problems. You look at leaders who are misfiring and not really connecting with their people, and it always goes back to that, a lack of Helen, what you described in your quote here that I loved, you talked about enterprise perspective. And that's a perspective that leaders do not normally have. Very few have that because their perspective is egoic. It's like the ego is running the show. Even though the ego is a contracted, fictional non-entity made up of all kinds of fears and worries and desires to dominate and control other egos. It is the source of all dysfunction that I've ever seen in leadership. It's the biggest challenge for a coach is to have a leader really see that the perspective of their leadership being for the entire enterprise, like you say, Helen, instead of just me, how am I doing? And it manifests this trap that leaders get into where they become this fictional little homunculus inside the cranium. No heart, no spirituality, no big picture, just I must succeed, and I am trying to demonstrate at all times that I deserve to be the leader. And that creates all kinds of pathologies, one of which is the inability to ask for help, the inability to collaborate, the desire to be the answer man. I need to have the answers. And so when a problem arises, I look weak if I don't impose my opinion on the problem. And if I don't have the answer, then I'm suffering from imposter syndrome and I really shouldn't be the leader. And the way I can prove that I ought to be the leader is to have the answer. This book, and I can see why Mark waited to make that bold statement until later. Because if he had led with that, it's going to be, what is this, some kind of non-duality spiritual book about leadership? That won't connect with leaders. What connects with leaders in this book are all the examples, all the exercises, all the language offered that they can use, all the systems they can use to collaborate, to work with people, and to draw on the power they receive when they're less dominant, less egoic. The ability to plug into the power source of the other people in their company who have great ideas and not take it as a bruising of the ego when someone has a better idea than the person who is in the leadership position. Once a leader can open up and have that openness to brainstorm versus problem solve ideas for solutions for where the company is going, that's the true enterprise perspective that leads to great leadership. Not a dominating, tyrannical genius who wants credit for everything, believes the board of directors will not look kindly upon him or her if she doesn't seem to be the one controlling everything and dominating the workplace with their personality. And I've never known a leadership book that recommends Byron Katie, Michael Singer, Eckhart Tolle, and Anthony DeMello. He saves that until later because that is really inside the work of those people is the answer for leadership today, but it's inside this book too. One of the things Byron Katie said that really hit me years ago: personalities don't love, they want something. And when a leader creates a cult of personality instead of a company run on systems and principles that we all benefit from, learn, pass on to the people around us, when a company is run on a cult of personality, it is not optimal. And the sad thing is, the leaders that I've worked with, what they finally find out, if they're open to growing as a leader, is when they receive help from the people around them and when they ask for help, the bottom line results are better. And when the bottom line results are better, the board of directors or anyone the leader thinks she or he needs to impress are impressed by the bottom line results, not by how we got there, not by whose idea was this. So this book unravels the leader's ego from the very start. All the podcast quotes from the leaders and thought leaders that Mark has interviewed, and he's chosen so wisely the really game-changing kinds of quotes from people from his podcast and put them in this book. The exercises, and it's just great. I'm going to be sending the book to every every person I know who's involved with either coaching leaders or leadership, because for the first time, there's a book that has everything. It covers all the bases in a way that's both intellectually exciting, it's fun to read, the ideas are profound, but it's also super practical. There are things to put into action immediately. Every 2 or 3 pages, it's like, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to try this. This works for other people. I'm going to do it myself. So I love the book. I could go on forever about it. It's the book that leadership in the world has been waiting for. There are many books, but they don't cover it all, and they don't focus the way this book does on pure creativity, compassion, collaboration, and the ego is left out in the woods somewhere. The ego does not show up in here in any of the activities recommended, not just recommended from theory, that there aren't abstract ideas that you have to believe in. These are practical systems that you can just go apply immediately and find out for yourself. They work better and they have track records. Mark refers to people who have done this and he interviews them. How did that work for you? And different sessions and dialogues. There's so many creative, expressive ways of showing the reader the reality of how these ideas have worked before and how they can work for you as a leader. And from my point of view, especially for a coach of leaders, to have this be the handbook for the coach. This is what I want my leader to learn to do, learn to understand, learn to apply. And it's a handbook, it's a book of action. It's not a book of theory. And it's great. It deserves to go everywhere.
Fabulous. Oh, thank you, Steve. You made Mark cry.
Oh, I didn't think anybody could see that. That's going on repeat.
Yes,
in my office every morning.
A beautiful, beautiful assessment of the book. And I will be quoting, I quote you a lot anyway, and give away your books a lot, but plugging into the power source of your organization, that is such a, yeah, that really resonates for those of us who coach senior leaders. That's a beautiful takeaway. And I think for me, as I think about, what what the key takeaways for me are, I completely agree with you, Steve. Like, this is a book that has been written because of Mark's depth of experience of coaching, isn't it? And the depth of his own spiritual journey and the work that he's done on himself. And what we've ended up with is a really practical book of, insights, tools, tactics, learnings from really experienced leaders, people that Mark worked with through his career, some amazing guests that he's had on the podcast. And just you end up with, just as you say, Steve, like really usable stuff that you can, sit and do the exercise and learn from. Right? The first chapter in the book is called Leading Up, and it's about being a trusted advisor, becoming a trusted advisor to your boss, which, even that concept, is unfamiliar to many leaders, and the fact that they might, want to do that or be able to add value like that. But, Mark's first real kind of distinction and thing that he wants us to get is that when you work for someone, it's that relationship with them is your responsibility. And I think there's probably a few people on this call that have worked with Mark over the years where he's said to them, well, your boss is like that, but we can't control your boss, can we? We can only control you. And if I was your boss's coach, I would say that to them. But but I'm not. So let's focus on you. So that boss empathy map, I think it's just a really, a really useful lens to look at your role as a dynamic subordinate. Kevin Haverty calls it on your podcast, didn't he? How do you become a dynamic subordinate? How do you become a trusted advisor? How do you take control of the relationship with your boss? How do you have those clarity conversations? As Diana says, how do you pick the time and the space and the place to talk to your boss and engage them? And how do you become a really good follower? And how do you build your influencing skills to stack the deck in those meetings? So I think, Steve, what we're hearing, aren't we? Just tons of practical tools that are really grounded in Mark's experience. So thank you, and thank you for being here, and thank you for everything that you've done on all of many of our journeys as an author and a coach and a leader in this industry. And thank you for your words today. Really appreciated by Mark and all of us. Thank you, Steve. Good. I would love to hear from some folks. I think I'd love to hear. First of all, I'm going to go to Tony, our dear friend Tony Benici, who is on the call, and I think who's Mum and Dad are on the call too. But Tony, can you take yourself off mute, my love? And then we'd love to hear. Yes, there he is. Yes, Tony's here. Wonderful. And I know you and I have been. Yes, there's Tony's book too. You and I have walked this journey alongside Mark and have read several versions of this book on the way, haven't we? Talk to us, and as a fellow coach of leaders more in the entrepreneur space, but as someone else who works with these powerful leaders, what were some of your takeaways from Mark's book, Tony?
Oh boy, there so many of them, Mark. I'm so excited and proud, man. You've put so much work, time, and energy into this, and it just lights me up to see all the support and people that you've called in, and I've watched you do the work. And as Helen was saying, we've been on this journey, Christina, Helen, and myself, of the first book that 75,000 copies have been sold. That is such a great accomplishment, and I don't know many authors that can say that. Patty, thanks for putting that up, because that is really to own that, and to feel the energy and time and commitment that he has put into this is phenomenal. I mean, the amount of work that goes into publishing a book, as there's many authors on this right now knows, the only thing that I can kind of experience is the outside of watching childbirth. And so I birthed a book, and so that idea of birthing something, and Mark, this is your the second one, and the amount of growth that you put into it, and it's been really magical to watch and be a part of. Some of the things that I like about this book is that one of the statements that I loved is to walk your talk, and to watch a man develop a book and do the deep work that is required and needed to write something of this magnitude and this depth, that can take people not only from the leader where you are today to that next level. It doesn't matter where you're at, to the wanting to move up into the C-suite or into entrepreneurship. This is the book to do it. It can really take you all the way through the steps that it's going to require to do that. And so Mark really, brings a clear roadmap and, like Steve was saying, strategies to move through it that I have never seen before. So this way of communicating it is needed in the world, Mark, and I'm so glad that you've put it together. For me, going through these statements and the quotes and everything that I'm hearing, the one that Mark kind of pointed me to was chapter 9. And chapter 9 has a quote from Buddha, Jesus, and Leonardo da Vinci. Ah, I'm glad he waited towards the back of the book to start that process of leadership, Mark. You know, and to watch Mark be in that process of ownership and leading of what is his style of communication from, I'm going to be bold, from Buddha, from Jesus, from Leonardo da Vinci. He has a voice like that to me. And so I see that resonating and coming out in this book, Mark, like I've never seen before. So I've seen you come up with a lot of content, a lot of other people's content. This is you being you, man. And I appreciate this and look forward to, this is that platform for what's the beginning. It's not the end of something. So I'm really, really proud. Yeah. I love you, man.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you. And Patty, did you hear that? It's not the end. I think you may not be the only one on this call, Tony, that thinks there might still be another book. But in the meantime, just a little commercial break. If you haven't bought it on Kindle and left a review, please could you do that today? Thank you, Tony. Yay. Now then, I'm going to pick on someone else, Brady, someone else who has, talking of people who've been on the journey with Mark, and who is a leader and is up to great things in the world. I'd love to hear from Brady. If you could unmute yourself, Brady, and talk to us about, on this journey, what you've got from working with Mark or with from this book.
Yeah, thanks, Helen. And first of all, congratulations, Mark. Incredible accomplishment. I know how much heart and soul you put into this, and we're all fortunate to have this handbook and this tool. I've learned so much from Mark over the years. It's really hard to distill it down, but I'll just be brief and say I think the really unique thing I've always benefited from working with Mark and learning from Mark, and that is really present in the book, is this combination of his practical advice and all the experience that he has that comes out through that, and the heart and the empathy. And, you know, everyone's talk today has touched on that a bit, but it's a really rare combination. And Mark has put it together in a special way. You know, when we would talk, and this is in the book time and again, there's just some mini case study over and over again about how something happened. And if you're a leader, if you're an aspiring leader, every one of those rings true. You read it and you're like, oh, I've been there, I've seen that, or I've experienced that myself. And Mark gives you a roadmap to think through that. Everyone's experience is a little different, but there's so many use cases here. And it's not just presenting the challenge, it's really giving you a way through it. So I'm really excited to have this. I'm gonna use this, is gonna sit right here by my desk, and I'm gonna work with it every day as I work through challenges in my own business. And just grateful for Mark and everything that he's done in the book and beyond. So thanks, Mark, and congrats.
Thanks, Brady.
Wonderful. Thank you, Brady. Yes, you know what it takes to get here, don't you? That's wonderful. Good. Now then, talking of clients, Rich, are you with us, my love? Rich Pereira.
I'm here, yes.
And here, yes, there he is, and you're off mute.
Hi.
Oh, wonderful.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us today. Do you want to introduce yourself very briefly? And then I'd love to hear what you felt that you've got from this book or working with Mark, or
Great.
What resonates with you.
Sure. And congratulations, Mark, on launch day. In addition to the Kindle review, I'll be posting on Instagram once it's back up. I don't know if anyone saw, but Instagram is down right now. But when it's back up, Mark will be on my stories, and I'll be posting on LinkedIn as well. So I still am a high achiever when I met Mark, and I was very good at my job skills. And I say that not in a place of ego, but I'm quoting Mark when I say that. I was very good at my job, knew how to do it really well. I was a high achiever, but I was not an effective leader. And my CEO needed me to get there, and my team needed me to get there. Additionally, I was a high achiever, but I was a grumpy achiever as well, because I always took on all of the work. The volume was always high. I loved doing the work, but I took it all on. And I couldn't get myself from going from operations to strategy, Mark not only taught me how to do that and showed me how to do that, but he also showed me the why and the value of myself, beyond the job and beyond the work skills. And he showed me, and this is in the book as well, that my job was going to be leading, not doing. And that was really an evolution in my career and my own mental state as well. And after working with Mark, the change was nearly immediate, not only to myself feeling better and not having that mountain of work to do. Only 10s helped me with that as well. But it was also immediate for my team. They suddenly liked working with me more. They liked working with each other more. And it was immediate for my peers on the leadership team of my organization and my CEO. Suddenly I wasn't that grumpy, overwhelmed person. I was a leader who was teaching others. One other, on page 110 of this book, of the new book today, says better relationships equal better life. And for me, that really happened through working with Mark and through working with the other books that he's written as well. Better relationships, not only at work, but also interpersonally and in my own family and friends. I'm very happy because when I was looking through this book and when I was reading through it, the skills that I learned and what Mark showed me is now in this book for everyone to see and learn, and for the deputies on my team to see and learn as well. I was listening to Mark's maybe second most recent episode of his podcast. He makes a really good gym partner in your ear. The episodes are a little short though, so sometimes I have to listen to older ones too. So Mark, go on further with your episode length of podcast so I can get big and buff. But Mark was asked a question on his podcast about if he could describe this book in one word, and he said freedom. And for me, I was like, yeah, you know what? Actually, not only this book, but because this book represents the work that I've been doing with Mark over the past several years of my life and my career, freedom is also what he's unlocked with me. And last note on this book is that I really like the way that it's not only text, and not only I could hear Mark speaking through the text, but I love how you've brought in exercises, quotes, charts, the delegation game on page 124. It's really fun. And I think that's Mark as well, because if I was to say a word about Mark, it would be fun. Not only to have you unlocked freedom in me, but the funness of that exercise is also in this book and in your writing style. So congratulations. And I can't wait to share this with my team.
Thanks, Rich.
Ooh, thank you, Rich. Thank you. Beautifully said. You should be in communications, my friend. Thank you. Fun and freedom, hey? Inside a Rising Leader Handbook. Right? Steve, you said, some of these messages, it's kind of a Trojan horse, isn't it? This book. Fun and freedom in a corporate jacket. Mark, I would love to know. Actually, I'm gonna ask Mark a few questions, and then if anyone else would like to share, I'd love to hear from more folks as well. But for everyone, Mark, tell us a bit of the backstory for this book, because others, I know a bunch of us around you have said you should write it down. You should write it down. There's a Mark way. There's a Mark way. But why did you write the book?
So interesting. For a guy who likes to be on stage, this is tough to have this kind of focus. Why did I write the book? It's so interesting. People write books all the time, and now with AI, in order to have a business card to give, right, to have some sort of content. And that's not the way I write books. I write books because inside I'm told to write the book. And I think it was a conversation with you and I talking about what is next for me, and you kind of asking me questions about what I do all day, every day for a living. Because with the Mastering Midlife podcast and Mastering Overwhelm podcast and the way I am in the world, I kind of describe it as more as Oprah. I really want people to be free. I really want people to be okay. And I didn't know how to relate it to what I did for a living all day, every day. And you helped me by locking me in a room. And yes, there's a debate whether you let me eat or not. I do remember begging to go to dinner, and you said 1 more hour in your Enneagram 3-way. And that's actually when the breakthrough happened. That's when I actually figured out what we did. And we codified what I do with my clients, where do I start with them, depending, whether it's leading up, leading across, leading the team, or some sort of self-leadership that they need help with. There's always a starting point. And what can I do to use their day-to-day? Because I love the fact that, Rich called out the fact that the book is about freedom. I want to use your everyday, your boss, your peers, the people who work for you, your own shortcomings, for you to grow, to be a better person, to have a better life, and to have a better relationship with life and the things that you have to do every day. So I wrote the book specifically to set people free and to kind of codify what it is I do all day, every day. But again, I think I'm stealing this from Jeff Spencer. Like, I don't have goals. I didn't have a goal to write a book. I answer callings, and this book wanted to be written. And so, of course, I call Patty Hall, because she's my partner in crime with this, and she drags me kicking and screaming over the finish line, and I'm so grateful for that.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you. And yes, thank you, Patty. I got him into the race and you got him over the finish line. And there were many others on the journey too. So it was a little bit of a team effort, but it's the Mark magic, right? Isn't it? It's the fun and freedom. I'm curious, Mark, as you went on this journey, though, we're laughing about them today, but clearly there was some wrestling and some struggles, weren't there? And some, probably some insights for you on the way. So what did you learn as you wrote the book?
Couple things. One is, every time you decide to do something, every time I decide to do something, to write a book, when I wrote Only Tens, when I wrote in a couple of other compilation books that I've been in, life calls you to grow into the person who's writing that book, right? So I was called to be the leader I never thought I was. So I wound up interviewing people from the past and saying, tell me about my leadership. Like, I never thought of myself as a leader. And over again, people, even when I was in my worst headspace, would say, no, Mark, you were always a leader. No, you always led this team. No, you were always the center of this particular thing. Even my brother, who passed away last year, who knew me when I was a kid, and I was an asthmatic kid, and he said, Mark, you owned every room you walk into. You walk in as a leader. You always have. And that really was a reflection that I didn't understand. So in order to own this mantle, because I never, ever thought of throwing my hat in the ring as a leadership coach. I'm not an ex-Navy SEAL, that kind of thing. I don't come from it from that perspective. So I had to learn to step into my own leadership as I wrote what I wrote. It was really an interesting thing. And then as far as writing the book with ADD, I believe in getting support. We're really good at some things and we're really not good at other things. And one of the things I'm not really good at is focusing, but I'm really good at finding the tools to get me over the finish line. So having work sessions with you, right? You, Tony, and Christina, as I'm going through the book and Patty's waiting for the manuscript, I'm on page 120 of 230. I'm on page 125, getting through those things. And it got me through, and it got it over the finish line.
Wonderful. Yes. No, asking for help is a lesson that many of us have to learn, isn't it? And yeah, it really resonates, doesn't it? Sometimes we write the book that we wanted to read, or we write the book that we need to learn. So wonderful. I love it. Good. As you think about your clients and future leaders and teams maybe that work for your clients, what do you want them to get from this book?
What I see in the world in general is overwhelm. I see the world stimulating fight or flight. I think people are more tense, more rushed, more overwhelmed, more overworked, more focused on survival. Even if you have money, even if you have money in the bank, I think people are so focused on survival in every area of their life and competing with this pace of life and with the politics and with all the things that are happening, that people are in fear, in fight or flight, and tense. And I don't think that, I think that breeds health issues. I think that breeds relationship issues. I think that breeds career issues. I think it just is a detriment to us as the human animal. So using where people are, like we can't quit our jobs. We can't all, especially if you're in the United States, you can't quit your job. You need health insurance, right? You can't just go be something else. You can't go weave baskets in Bermuda if you have a family. So how do we use what's happening in front of us to set us free? That's why Michael Singer is in the book. That's why Byron Katie's in the book, right? That's why I bring the spiritual and the practical positive psychology, I guess you would call it, in order to set yourself free, because we're not going to get out of the rat race. But how can we transform ourselves within the rat race so we aren't rats running on a wheel? That's what I want for my clients. That's what I want for people who read the book. I want people to be free, because I'm really can't stand watching people suffer to be in the 1%.
Yes, yes, I've heard you talk about that before. It's almost the price of being in the 1%, isn't it? And I know, Steve Chandler, when you were talking earlier, just that ego and the running on ego, and how we can often be in that kind of, alert state all the time. There's a lot of fear in that, isn't there? And in that way of being. So, what I really like is this book really gives tools and awareness that maybe people just don't have. It's wonderful. Thank you, Mark. That's great. I would love to. I know we have some dear souls on this call, and some very wise folks. So I'd love to offer anyone else who'd like to ask Mark a question or share an insight. If you were an author, advanced copy, or if you're a fellow author, I know we've got. And we also have Fatherhood is Leadership, isn't it, Mark? And we have both of your wonderful sons, Jake and Jakob, with us today, and John's with us. We've got Meredith and Mandy who've written books. And Steph is on, and we've got Andy and Diana there who've written books. So I'm going to open it up to anyone else who'd like to share a reflection, share an insight, say something.
Hey, Helen.
Mark.
It's
Yes,
Lori.
fellow coach and author. Yes.
I've been thinking about you all day. I've been thinking about you all week, because I know today is such a big and important day, and I have goosebumps for you, Mark. I have goosebumps for you. You know how I feel about your book, because we've talked about your book, and it is all of the things everybody has already said on this call and more. I'm excited to share it with my clients. I have to say, I just love the punchy way that you write, man. It goes at such a nice clip, and there's this clever humor in the way that you communicate. To me, it's very, very alluring, and such an easy page turn. So the book is brilliant. We know that. You are brilliant, and you're courageous to continue to put your work into the world in a raw and real, authentic way. Like, I see that and I feel that from you, and I'm just so grateful to be sharing in your joy today and sharing in your success. I know from my personal experience, it does take a lot of courage to put something into the world, and you stand out to me. You're a role model and a mentor to me in this space. And I just want to celebrate you, man. I really do. Today's a meaningful day. I wish you all the success. I'm sure this will sell 75,000 plus copies, and I'm happy to be sharing your journey with you. Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's interesting to actually write in my own voice. The people who will know that that's my voice are my clients. And when Patty got the manuscript, she was like, wasn't sure she liked it, because it was not the usual fare. And I was a little embarrassed. Again, it's supposed to be a business book. It's supposed to be a leadership book, but my heart and soul is in this, and putting it out in the world the way it is, with the way I talk to people and the way, my entire philosophy of life. It's like laying myself bare. So I appreciate you saying that.
Thank you, Lauren. Yay, Mandy. Can you come off mute, Mark? Yes.
Mark, first, an initial celebration. And second, we've heard a lot of amazing testimonials, Kindle has been purchased. I will put the review on Amazon. I'm curious how writing this book, this one in particular, in this season of your life, has changed you.
Ooh. Ownership. Again, it was hard for me to utter the words leadership coach. It was hard for me to utter the, like to actually stand up and take my rightful place. I can do it as a father. I can do it in situations, but to do it publicly and put my stamp on the world, to put my perspective on the world and put it out unvarnished, for me was a real stepping into and coming out of, the way I hid myself. And it was turning 60 was a huge part of it. Something happened when I turned 60 and realized, that I have lived a pretty ferocious life. I've had some really high highs and I've had some really low lows. I've had some internal battles to deal with. I've done some really cool things externally, and to own the fact that I made it to 60 in a pretty brilliant fashion. My sons are, my greatest joy in life, and the thing that I can look to as my greatest success. I'm so proud of them, Zach and Jake. And then for me to actually own that this wasn't an accident, that I did this every step. There's grace, and then there's your action. And I've had a lot of grace, and I've taken a lot of action. So thank you for asking that question, or making that statement, because yeah, this was me stepping up and owning, all the work that I put in this 60 years.
I think I would reflect to you, Mark, that it's been interesting watching you step into what we already saw. Right.
And that's the shocking thing, is that this is only a surprise.
The world,
to be only
the
a surprise
world already knew. So it's so great to see you owning it. That's amazing. Great question. Thank you, Mandy. Who else would like to? Meredith, I'm curious. You're a woman with really great questions for a living. Any thoughts?
Do. I think mine is more just of a comment. I love what everyone has said. And Helen, I love what you just said in response to Mark, because it touched me very deeply. And I think all of us should be thinking about that. What have we not stepped into that everybody else already knows about us? That was profound, what you just said. It was like, oh my gosh. So thank you. Thank you for that. There have been so many things that, Mark, you know how much I love and admire you. This book really touched me. Not, I read a lot, and this book just, it touched me on a lot of different levels. And part of it because I know you, Mark, and I could hear your voice. And I put this because I did get an early copy, and I wrote a review, and it was like you were coaching me personally throughout. And to me, that is such a rare thing. I don't know if I've ever seen it in another book, because of who you are and your voice, because you stuck to writing it the way you wanted to. I think that's what really comes through loud and clear. It's the real Mark. It's brilliant. I love the fact that word has been used for you and by you today, because you are. And I'm thrilled that this book is now out there, because not enough people can coach with you individually and benefit from all your wisdom. But the fact that you have prevailed through all the ups and downs in your career and have captured all this wisdom is just amazing. And I think one of the things that makes this book so different from other leadership books is that very first section about leading up and challenging the reader to look within and say, I got to own this, instead of they should do this, they should do that. what is it I need to do? And that to me is the challenge throughout the whole book.
Mm.
Where do I need to step in and take ownership of a given situation? And I think that has universal application for every one of our relationships, because whether it's our spouse, our kids, our friends, doesn't matter. All of us can step in and say, where's my responsibility here to strengthen this relationship? So thank you for putting your heart and soul into this book. It's going to help so many people.
Thank you.
Thank you, Meredith.
I think Mike Doherty's been asking this question, and
yes, I'm going to come to Mike, and then Mike Doherty, and then we have a question from Hawaii as well. I'd love to hear from Diana and Andy as well. So I'll come to you next, Hawaii. But Michael asked, what was the most challenging thing about the first draft of this book?
I think he asked that like when the whole first thing started, and I was thinking about that. So the first draft, besides getting over the hump of imposter syndrome, like who am I to write another leadership book? Why should there be another leadership book? Those questions. Once I sat down, I write on my meditation cushion at 5:30 in the morning. That's when I'm the clearest, and that's when I can channel and just write things I don't think I would ever write at any other time of the day. So what I did was I wrote stories. I wrote interactions I had every single day over the last couple of decades, and especially with my clients. Changed a lot of names, changed a lot of genders, tried to shuffle things around as much as possible, because my clients like to play who's who in the book. So the first draft actually was the easiest. I have severe ADD. It's putting the puzzle together that is the most impossible thing for me. How do you make this a thing, right? So Helen and I both admire Alyssa Cohn, who wrote a book From Startup to Grown Up, where she separated her book into 4 sections. And we kind of borrowed from that in, what is it that I do in leadership in the 4 perspectives: leading up, leading across, leading your team, and leading yourself. But then I left it to the experts. And having someone like Patty Hall, an expert book coach and publisher, to actually take the whole thing and make sense of it and say, move this over here, try this, and all that. That's the only way to get it over the finish line. The first draft isn't so hard. It's getting it to turn it into a book that other people can understand what it is I meant to say. Because every time I went through it, I would worry, like, oh, we're going off the rails here. Oh, this didn't actually call back to this. And that's why I have someone like Patty make sure all those loose ends are tied.
Wonderful. Great, thank you. John Bradley's on. John, you've had a ringside seat to this. How's it been? How's it been watching this book be born?
So, Mark, you wrote a book? First I've heard of it.
Yes, yeah. So everybody knows John's my husband, and he's the one who said, go to your office and write "I've got dinner" every single night.
I'm sure you all know Mark has put so much into this for months now. He's really put his heart into it, and he's worked so hard. Happy to see so many people here and all the nice remarks. It's going to be a great success, and I love you, Mark, and I'm very proud of you.
Oh,
look at you with Teo in the background.
They're the wolves, yes. And then have we got Yakov or Jake? Oh, Myrna's. Oh, there we go. Myrna, New Jersey's in the house. Myrna, yes, absolutely, my love. And I'm going to take yourself off mute. And if you'd like to say anything, it would be lovely to hear from you.
Well, Yael and I are cousins, and I just wanted to tell him how proud we are of him. We've watched the journey, the ups, the downs, the goods, the bads, and just how proud we are of him, and look forward to watching his continued journey and his continued success. This is wonderful to be part of this, so thank you, and good luck, and we love you, Mark.
None of this is possible without you guys. I appreciate you more than you know.
Oh, and Jake is there. Yakov is there. Do you want to say anything, Jake? Want to come off mute?
I think he said he was in a place he couldn't talk, but we'll see.
Oh, Let's see. He's smiling.
I can jump off.
That's Jake. That's Zach.
Yep.
Hi, Zach.
Yeah,
Zach,
I can jump
go
off. Hi.
Zach. They're both in. Yes, go for it.
So
Yes.
Mark and I have a strictly professional relationship, but
You're not a client, are you?
He is now.
No, what he said earlier about a lot of people just writing books with AI, or even before AI, just writing books so they have something to wave around at their speeches, and him not wanting to do that, not wanting to do it that way is very, very apparent from watching the way he talks about his book, and having read some of his previous books. It's a very interesting perspective coming with all the varied and the pretty unique experience in the business world he's had, and his ability to navigate it, and his ability to condense his thoughts into very easy to read, very actionable. A lot of the words we've already heard. A very actionable plan that you can go through. That I think there's a lot of noise in the space of business books, and having his perspective and his ability to write something unique and something that can, actually help you get ahead, rather than just something you can wave around and say, look at the book I wrote, come have me speak at your event. I think he does a very good job of that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Zach. And
Thanks, Zach.
for you to have both the book and a coach like him this early in your career, for both of you, is fabulous. And yes, we all know how proud he is of both of you. Hawaii, Andy and Diana, I'd love to hear from you.
We love you so much,
Yes.
Mark, and we are so proud of you. I think you said something. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, clearly.
You
Good.
said something that was really important, and I was going to say that, but you said it. It really is a channeled book. You came from your mat, you came from your sitting, you came from your heart and soul, and wrote it as a message that was needed in our world today. I think all of our governmental leaders really need it, and I think that even I work with many different couples, and I recommend it to couples because I think they're even in a family, the ideas that you give of vertical, horizontal, and inward are so important for them to live their life that way. It's not just for leaders, it's for everybody. And we love you so much, and we're so proud of you.
Congratulations, Mark. I really was impressed with reading this book and the way you subtly brought in the qualities of empathy, spiritual integrity, and boundless intimacy and peaceful life.
I've only read your book 3 times.
I'm so blessed to see that coming into the world in a practical, pragmatic, and strategic way, but in a blessed way. And I'm thank you for putting it out.
Thank you.
Thank you too. You too. Wonderful. Right. We are in our last minute. Are there any?
I'd like to say something.
Yes.
My sister.
Wonderful. We'd love to hear from you.
I'm Mark's sister, Andy, and I cannot tell you, Mark, how proud I am of you. I haven't read this book yet. I'm certainly looking forward to it. I have enjoyed your previous books, and as everyone has said and mentioned, they're practical. There is emotion in there, and there is love, which hasn't been mentioned. And in your previous books, I saw the love of family, friends, and co-workers in the book, which really touched me. And Mark, again, you are an amazing person with just an amazing ability to talk to people, understand people, and provide feedback that they really need. And again, love you, proud of you. Thank you for doing this, and I can't wait to read it. Take care.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Andy. Mark, thank you, everyone. For there's a lot. That